So goals are guesses about where we might be in the future and where we might be able to see ourselves being happy.
Yeah.
If we set goals, something I've noticed, and again, the whole catalyst behind money therapy is I'm challenging you, the listener, I'm challenging myself to understand that like emotional turns in our emotions rarely, if ever, change forever overnight. All right, welcome to another episode of Money Therapy.
Another one.
I am Brandan Chasteen.
I'm Bill McGill.
And we're going to help facilitate this discussion today. Guys, I'm super passionate about the topic that we're going to discuss today.
And you got pretty amped up.
Pre-show was fun. Because here's the thing. So let's just go ahead and give it to you. What we're going to talk about today is personalizing your financial goals.
Yeah.
I meet people and talk to them about their goals all the time.
That's what we do.
And you know what their goals are?
They don't know.
No, sometimes they know. They're all the same though. Like, how are you giving me personal goals and you're retiring the exact same time that 37 of the 40 people I just met are? How are you giving me personal goals, but they sound exactly like the hundreds of other people that have sat at my chair, at my desk before you?
That's a good question.
So again, the ecosystem, if you got the email on Sunday, the Sunday series, there's a couple really, really good thoughts that kind of started my journey in challenging people to be more real with me when they're talking about their goals. So bullet point number 1, goals are guesses. So we were talking about this, and here's my thought process on why I would say goals are guesses. Oftentimes we back into our goals by borrowing intellectual property from other people or from our society. As an example, I want to retire when I'm 65. Like, you want to retire when you're 65? That's funny, because that's when people start pulling Social Security out. Like, yeah, that's why I want it. So you want to retire when the government's telling you to retire. Like, that's your goal in life?
Yeah. That's
weird to me. I think that sometimes we pick goals where we can kind of emotionally get behind the idea that, like, if I can reach this benchmark that society says or suggests I should, I'll feel like I'm on track enough and I could see myself being happy or content at that point, right? So goals are guesses about where we might be in the future and where we might be able to see ourselves being happy.
Yeah.
If we set goals, something I've noticed, and again, the whole catalyst behind money therapy is I'm challenging you, the listener, I'm challenging myself to understand that, like, emotional turns in our emotions rarely, if ever, change forever overnight. When I'm 65 and retired, then I will be able to enjoy my life a little bit more. So then I'll be happy.
Right.
Guys, like, you have to start the process of undoing anxiety and undoing fear and undoing doubt. Because if you're full of fear and doubt and anxiety and you think just magically at the age of 65, all of a sudden I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
You're not. Right? The only way that we can have, like, true change to our emotions very, very quickly is typically chemically induced, right? We get prescribed medicine to change our attitude or behaviors, reduce our anxiety. And we don't want to default to taking medicine, right? So we have to start learning how to be happy and content with where we're at. And the only way that we make our goals, the only way we accomplish goals, especially long-term goals, is if there's something we're truly passionate about.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be passionate about retirement just because that's the age the government suggests you should retire.
Yeah.
What do you really want?
Yeah.
Right? Goals have to be personal. And it's important to have big goals. And it's important to have goals that are way down the line in our life. But even those big goals have to be made by piecing together several, maybe tens or hundreds even of these smaller micro goals.
Yeah.
Because if they're too far away, like emotion requires immediate response. If I'm angry, I need to deal with my anger right now. Right? So if it's a decision between doing something that will potentially make me work optional at 65 or being less angry right now, I'm going to choose to be less angry right now. Yeah. In the face of emotion, we're always going to choose the right now solution.
Yeah.
But if we have these micro goals, if we have these micro actions, these small things that are attainable and within reach, maybe within days or a couple weeks, or maybe at most a month or two, then that can sometimes seem immediate enough that we choose the most healthy way to deal with our anger, our fear, our whatever emotion we're dealing with. Instead of making a decision that derails the goal that's 30 years away, we realize if I deal with this the way I usually do, I don't accomplish the goal I set for next week.
Right.
Right. So we have to have those micro goals. I want people to come into this office and make very, very personal goals.
Yeah.
I want them to tell me the personal goals. So in pre-show, I asked you,
Yeah.
like, what is a goal that you have?
Yeah.
What'd you share?
To make more money each month.
Okay. So you want to make more money. How do you know that is a personal goal?
Because it would improve or make me feel better about my personal situation in life right now.
Yeah, like providing for your family. Again, like what I'm hearing is the same thing that we're told we have to say.
Yeah.
Right? I brought up the notion. I saw a meme on social media. It was by an older guy, probably someone my age, who said, I bought a new pair of shoes last week and nobody asked me how fast I can run. And I'm pissed. Like I think when we are in our like very youthful state, like when we were kids, right?
Right.
Like I didn't buy shoes because everybody said I needed to buy shoes. Like when I put on a brand new pair of shoes when I was like 5,
Yeah.
what I immediately do, ran down the hall, like ran down the shopping aisle as fast as I could. Like, Yep, I'm faster.
Yeah.
And then I'd jump, be like, yeah, that was higher.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I'd go to school the next day,
Yeah.
be like, hey, check out my shoes. Watch this.
Yeah.
And I'd just run like a real small circle. Like, my friends would be like, dang.
Especially if they had the lights on the bottom
Yeah,
of them.
you're
Look
fast.
Like the Flash.
You're fast. Those were like dreams and those were goals that I had. I wanted to be able to run faster. So I bought the shoes, right? Like the point that I'm trying to make is at some point we start borrowing all this information and we kind of start doing what we're told.
Yeah.
And it's important to participate in some of these things. Like you have to prepare for your future.
Yeah.
Not suggesting we shouldn't. But I think when we're talking about goals, it has to be your future.
Yeah.
And guess what? If you want to be work optional when you're 40 or 50, don't come in and tell me that you want to be work optional when you're 65.
Yeah.
Let's be ambitious. Let's see what we can do to solve this equation.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're not convicted, if your goals aren't backed by your values and what makes you tick as a human being,
Yeah.
the minute you get scared, the minute things go wrong, you bail.
Yeah. I think it's a testament that, you know, our first appointment often, a lot of the times, at least for me, I try not to even talk about specific numbers or personal finance. It's really trying to get to that why that people have, or ask them very specifically, what do you want? It's remarkable how, and not just personal finance, but pretty much everything in our lives, we, like you said, we transition into that place where we have to start making smart decisions, or perceived smart decisions that are borrowed ideas from everybody else.
Makes us feel safe.
And we forget to ask ourselves, what do you actually want?
Right.
You know, and one of the stories that pops in mind, I was sitting down and having this discussion with a lady, and she was about, I think, 59 years old. And, you know, just, again, what do you want? And she, well, you know, I think we want to retire in about 5 or 6 years. Right. And I said, well, why? Why that number? She said, isn't that just when everybody retires? And it's, well, you're not wrong. I mean, that's typically when, you know, again, Social Security says you should, and all these other factors from these borrowed ideas. But yeah, it's, again, our goal sometimes as financial planners and advisors and coaches and teachers, and your support system is really what we are in terms of your personal finances, is we're trying to dig down into that why. And we're trying to figure out, what do you actually want? And then the plan can come together.
Yeah. I want people to come to me. Like, here's the thing. I think when a lot of people come and sit down across from a CFP, they put on this particular like mask where they think everything that I'm asking has to be financial related.
Right.
And that has to be undone. So part of my job is to let them know that.
Right.
Like, hey, I'm about to ask you what your goals are. And almost the last thing I want to hear are your financial goals.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to commit $250 to my IRA every month.
Yeah, not what I want to talk about.
Even we think that's boring.
Yeah. You want to do that for now until things get tough or tight. And all of a sudden now, like the example that I was talking about in pre-show was, you know, if you are a grown person and you come to me and you're like, you know what, I just want to run faster. Like I want to have like a sub 5.5 second 40-yard dash.
Yeah.
And then part of that conversation, you're like, I also want to put $250 in my IRA. Okay. If I write both of these things down, the goals, then let's say 2 years down the road, right? Your cash flows are starting to get kind of cramped. And I'm like, hey man, we're actually spending more than we're bringing in. I think you need to cut back on your spending. And it looks like you're spending a lot of money on kind of the self-care side. You're going to the vitamin shop a lot. You're going to the massage place a lot. You're going to physical therapy a lot. You're paying for all these like PED things, whatever's going on. If I'm going to tell you, hey, I think we need to cut out spending money at the vitamin shop or cut back, so we can keep funding $250 into your IRA. If you're passionate about the 5.5 second 40-yard dash, and you were just saying, I want to put 250 in my IRA, but they were in the part of the same goal conversation, I can't realize that what I'm about to tell you is actually like cutting into your dream.
Right.
Right. What you're really passionate about is being fast. I don't know why. You're a financial planner. Like, why do you need to run a 5.5? I don't know why. It doesn't matter why. It's just something you want.
Yeah.
And so inside of that space, you want to run faster. And now I'm telling you to cut back on the vitamins that are going to keep you healthy.
Right.
So we can have devastating advice if we don't understand all of your goals, even if they're far-fetched, even if they're weird, and especially when they're non-financially related. We need to know these.
Yeah.
And those goals should be part of your financial plan, right? talked about like you could have these huge lofty goals, like I want to solve world hunger.
Yeah.
Who cares if we missed? Let's put that lofty goal down, and then let's figure out some of these small sprints that we can take. Let's take some cans to the food pantry. Let's go volunteer our time down at the soup kitchen. Let's do these little things to start working towards that.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're working towards a big, like, principle and value driven goal that you have in your life. And I'd bet that if we get 40 or 50 years down the road, or even 10 years down the road, you're going to feel so much like satisfaction in your life.
Yeah.
Even though you're still forever away from accomplishing solving world hunger, all the things that you've done are going to make you so proud.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas that other thing of putting $250 in this account, that's not going to provide that gratitude if you didn't really care, if that wasn't something truly like that you were truly passionate about, right?
Yeah.
Where does all this start? So we have to give you something to say, look, like I struggle with this because I have goals.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, man, like I think that's personal. I think that's unique, but it also sounds a lot like some of my other friends, families, communities, societies' goals. Like, is this truly my personal goal?
Yeah.
Is it personal? Do I have conviction in it? I have conviction right now. Will that change if I get emotional about something different? Will my priorities shift over time? We all grow as people. Mm-hmm. But like, is it going to change at the drop of a hat? So I'm gonna recommend a book here. It's by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez, and the book is called Your Money or Your Life. Highly recommend that book, and because it really pours into reflecting on your own values and priorities. Another book that I recommend or person to start digging into is Simon Sinek. You can find he has a lot of videos on YouTube, TED Talks, all these things on like developing and stating and understanding your why, your purpose, your mission in life. There's a book out called Start With Your Why.
Yeah.
And that's a great workbook that you can kind of work through and develop your own kind of principle, values-driven mission statement for you. And then as you're creating goals, like, does this get me closer to achieving this, right?
Yeah.
So it's super huge.
Well, and again, I think the hard part about all this is determining your why, determining what you actually want, determining what your actual goal is from those things. Yeah. People don't understand. That's the hard work. Yeah. We can come up with the plan. We can come up with a way to track the plan, how long we want to get, how long it's going to take us to get to that goal, how we know if we're going to make it or not make it. That's all the easy part. The hard work is actually starting with, what do I want? Why am I here? Or what is my why in this case? And then, going forward from there.
Yeah. Another book that I would encourage you guys to look into, and one of my kind of financial professional heroes, Carl Richards, wrote Behavior Gap. We've talked about that a couple times. And I can't recommend his book. Sits on my desk. It's right there. But, he does a great job of explaining kind of emotions versus financial choices and getting down to the very simply and quickly. He gets to kind of he's good at articulating a kind of this or that fallacy, and not in a way to trick you like what most fallacies are used for, but a way to make you think like, all right, if this is my goal, it should pass this test one way or another, right? So recommend Behavior Gap. Okay. The idea of resisting social comparison. So we've talked about we've done podcast on the idea of comparing ourselves to others, making sure we know when enough is enough. But again, in developing our goals, a lot of times our goals are based on what society tells us we need to do for our life or for the lives of our family. And when you're working on these goals, that's a super, super hard obstacle. I was telling you one of my goals, like in my life, is to the way that I word this is to put my daughter, to provide her situations, provide her opportunities to make good decisions.
Right.
I can't force her decision. I just want to give her enough opportunities to where she has kind of the deck stacked in her favor to make the good decision. And she's not forced to make a decision between marginal and bad.
Sure.
Right? I want her to have the opportunity to be presented with a good decision to make.
Sure.
But that's hard to measure success in. And I'm all about, like, I'm very, very big on let's make the goals, or let's create sub goals where we can see progress.
Sure.
And so one of the ways that I have, I've created a goal that I think facilitates multiple moments throughout her life and a lot of work in my life. If I can get to the point where when she goes to buy her first house, I can make the down payment for her first home.
Yeah.
Now that's a financial goal. And you're like, Brandon, like, you can be a good dad and not put a down payment on your daughter's house. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
100%. And guess what? If I can't put a down payment down on her first house, there's still a million potential opportunities where she's been in a situation where she had the opportunity to make a good decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think that it's like I fail at a dad if I don't do this. But this is a way to say, hey, if I get to this point in life where she goes to buy her first house and I can put down the down payment on her house for her as a gift, that to me is, it signifies that there's probably a lot of stuff that happened between now and that moment that means I gave her opportunities to make good decisions.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just one way to think about it. But you know, it's hard because it's like social comparisons. Of course we want to provide for our kids. You know, so is this something I'm truly passionate about? And I think my own wording comes into play there, and how I'm measuring that is very unique to me.
Sure.
And another thing that I'm going to give you, another challenge, is embrace individuality. You said a few episodes ago, be curious. Mm-hmm. And I love that phrase. And I think a lot of times as we age, our curiosity declines.
Yeah.
And I want to meet the person that is totally curious about possibility and has these wild ideas of goals, and let me try to figure out how to challenge me, because you're such a weird individual, you know, like unique individual. Maybe that's a better word.
Yeah.
But I think there's a Netflix special, Ramit Sethi. He wrote the book, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Mm-hmm. And he has some weird views on some things. And you know, you're never going to like totally 100% ascribe to any person, or you probably shouldn't. But one thing that I love about him is in his book, in his journal, in his show, he tells us that we can be rich, but our rich life is how we define our rich life.
Yeah.
And my definition of a rich life should be completely different from your definition of a rich life, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you just really need to think about you as an individual and take some time, even if you're in a relationship and you're coming up with like a joint financial plan. Some of that financial plan should be both individually you and your spouse's. Yeah. And it should really speak to the uniqueness that you bring to the relationship. You know, and I just think back to, you know, the little boy who had the new pair of shoes and thought he could run faster. And, you know, if my mom told me, hey, Brandon, it's time to go shoe shopping, I'm like, man, I need to start researching which shoes are going to make me the fastest.
Yeah.
You know, that's all I cared about. I want shoes that when I put them on, my feet are lighter, I run faster, I jump higher. And just that curiosity and that innocence and those goals, like it was just, you know, it wasn't about what society said was the cool shoe. It wasn't about what society said was like the right number of lace eyelets in the shoe or the height of the shoe or, you know, the softness of the sole. It was my own perceived definition of which one could make me run the fastest, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a very unique picture to create, because we all know little kids that have done that probably. And I want that kind of curiosity and innocence brought into the goal planning phase, right?
Yeah.
So the next question is, how do I know? Bill, how do you know that your goal is your goal? Right? Like, at what point in that process, like in goal setting, where you can look at a list of things you just wrote down and be like, yep, those are mine. Those are not anybody else's. Those are mine, right? I know that they're mine. And a couple of ways to kind of stress test this and make sure they're your goals is emotional connection. So when you make goals, when you finally articulate and write down something that's a burning desire in your heart of hearts, it's emotional and you're charged up. And it should be almost as emotional as any kind of like stuff coming into our life that makes us fearful, greedy, needy, materialistic, all the things that we've spent time talking about in our podcast. It's like, yeah, I'm still going to have those emotions. I'm still going to have those experiences. But when I step back, because I've built this awareness up and I start reflecting, I'm like, fear's real, but this is too important. I have a goal for this financial planning practice. I think that we have the opportunity to really challenge the quality and accessibility to real, true financial professionals.
Yeah.
And it's risky. My thought and what I want to do and how I want to do it, it's a little risky, right? You're on board.
I am.
But there's some risk involved. And so there's fear there, but at the same time, like, this could profoundly shape the livelihoods of countless people for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And in some level, it's worth the risk. So whenever I'm feeling afraid about a decision that I'm about to make or we're about to make for this business, it's like, yeah, but my passion, that desire trumps that fear every single time.
Yeah.
Right? Does it align with your values? So again, back to our one-page financial plan, the values, the mission statement's up at the top. The values, your beliefs, your core of who you are is at the top. Goals are underneath. And I'm always asking the client, when they come in with a new goal, tell me how this fits into your values circle.
Yeah.
If you come to me and you say, hey, I want to buy a boat, that could be the worst financial decision ever.
Yeah.
Generally is a pretty bad financial decision. They're expensive and you got a lot of main. But if who you are at the core of your being is like, relationships matter, my closest friends matter, and I love, like, I thrive, I live off of like unadulterated time spent in conversation. Mm-hmm. And if I have a boat, I can take 4 or 5 of my friends out on a lake and there's no interruptions. Mm-hmm. Right. And if that feeds you, then my job is to design a financial plan that facilitates that, not talk you out of it.
Yeah.
Right. Any thoughts at all?
I think it goes back again to having that initial conversation about trying to get all of that, whatever the person sitting in front of me is passionate about. I got to figure that out first. What do they actually want?
Right.
And then how can I support that and make that happen or help them get there?
Yeah. And a lot of it's pulling teeth. There's a lot, like, you can get on the internet. We do a lot of stuff around here where we'll start with just some really fun off the wall questions. Like, I have like 50 questions, a little Word document, like, what's your favorite food? You're having dinner on your birthday. Where are you celebrating? Like, what's your favorite pastime activity? By yourself, with family, with a friend? Sometimes you just got to get the old, wheels turning in your brain. Yeah. So that way, when we start to ask the tougher question, you're already kind of like warmed up, you're primed for it. But sometimes, like, meetings can be short, and you never, like, you have to dig hard. I mean, sometimes it's it's really, really tough to start to pull out the truth. And not because nobody's lying to me, but actually get to the matter of the heart.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I know you were prepared to have this conversation that you probably had interviewing 20 other financial professionals, but we got to get that out of the way. Like, that's not what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I have is just own it, right? And when you can truly own that this outcome has to happen, otherwise my life isn't going to be as fulfilling as what I wanted. That's when you own that goal, that's when true success and magic can happen, I think. Super passionate about this, guys, and I love to work with people on this. So if you have any questions, but if you want help, send me an email. It's the best way to get a hold of me, bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. You can check the show notes. It's in there. Visit our website, harpethwealthpartners.com. You can schedule an appointment through the website. Bill, how do they get a hold of you?
Same way, email is bill.magill@harpethwealthpartners.com. And I was going to say,
Magill.
Magill. Yeah.
Magill.
Magill. And come to the webinars too, because when you actually get to the point where you've thought about these things that we talked about today and you do have goals that you want to accomplish, we take time in those town halls and those webinars to map a lot of those factors out with you.
Yeah.
So the emails and the webinars, we've talked about the Elements app, the podcast, it all just keeps your brain thinking about this and keeps it on top of mind.
And I think I need to figure out how to plug this in without seeing the C drive. There we go.
Got it.
All right. I think, through the webinars, like getting into that ecosystem is important. So just shoot us an email. You can put Money Therapy Ecosystem. We'll get you incorporated. We have like very accessible coaching plans that we can incorporate there to help you, because, again, if you're doing well in so many other things and you have your finances kind of good, I always say that means they're good for now.
Yeah.
But coming up with these goals, you need some help, and it doesn't have to be us. I mean, there's lots of coaches and lots of planners out there that can help you, but finding somebody you trust, it really is a game changer, because inevitably life is going to get hard, and you don't want to quit the plan because things got tough and your priorities shifted, when in fact you never really were prioritizing this stuff in the first place. You were just kind of borrowing it.
Don't borrow it.
Don't borrow it. Make it yours. Thanks for your time, guys. Bye.
Adios.
We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandan at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.